Author of the Month. For the month of October, we have none other than Miss Janice Sutherland. Welcome to the library's first online Author of the Month.
I am honored.
Yes. You're such a busy lady. Primarily today, this morning, we're going to talk about your book, This Woman Can.
Okay.
That's quite a book.
Okay. A positive, quite a book.
I'm going to read a bit of your bio for those who are watching and listening.
Okay.
All right. So Janice is a CEO and award-winning leadership and personal development consultancy, and that is Sutherland Coaching and Consulting. She's also founder of This Woman Can, and that's a virtual community for professional women. She provides coaching and training, specializing in helping women and organizations build leadership skills through executive mentorship, leadership training, executive team facilitation for both corporate executives and entrepreneurs globally. Oh, wow, that's a mouthful. You're a busy lady. You're a very busy lady.
I am.
Which makes us even more appreciative that you took the time to actually sit with us and we could discuss the book.
Okay. I'm glad to discuss it. Always glad to discuss it.
Okay. Even though we read a bit of the bio, is there anything else you can add about yourself?
On a personal level or a work level?
Work. Well, whatever you're comfortable with.
Work. Well, no, I mean, work, that pretty much sums up the work I do. And I'm really passionate working with women because I think sometimes we can be our own harshest critic. And we can hold ourselves back. And I had another interview recently where I talked about that some of the women, definitely the Caribbean or Black women per se, are some of the most highly qualified women that you'll ever come across. Yet we still seek this external or additional validation in order to step into who we are. And we're so much more capable of what we can do. And it's trying to bridge that gap between, no, you don't need no qualifications. You need to go out and take action. Have belief in yourself. And that's where I get quite passionate.
That's excellent. I think your book is great.
Thank you.
I think it needs a whole lot more exposure. We need to see what we can do. We need to see what we can do to give this book a whole lot more exposure. All right. Is it what made you decide to write that book?
Okay. My background, as some people may know, is that I was the former CEO for Digicel, and I was the first female to head up the telecom sector here in Antigua and for Montserrat. And one of the things I kept getting asked, and plus my previous career in the UK, one of the things I kept being asked is, well, how do you handle so-and-so? How do you have the confidence to do X? How do you feel, don't worry about Y? And it's not that I don't worry about it or don't lack confidence. It's the fact that I recognize it for what it is and found the tools to handle it. And as I said, I see so many women, or I saw so many women not owning who they were or their abilities and kept getting the same questions, that I thought it'd be really beneficial to write it. Because one of the things we're not very good at as women, I tell women that sometimes you're not that special, and they go, there's a sharp intake of breath. And they say, what do you mean? And I say, well, I say that because we often run around with this one particular issue or challenge we have, and we don't think anyone else understands. We have what I call me, myself, and I syndrome. No one understands what I'm going through. No one could have and explain it. I can't talk to anybody. Yet if you tap the next woman to you and say, look, I've experienced this, pretty much invariably they'll say, yeah, well, I had a similar situation. So how do I get the word out and share with other women that your uniqueness or the challenge you're facing isn't unique? You personally are unique, but the challenge you're facing isn't. So how do I do that? And the book and the podcast and various other things I do were the vehicles I use to kind of share that message.
I like the fact that you mentioned in the book that you're tired of the textbook acronyms.
Oh my goodness,
You
yeah.
wanted something that, was really practical and addressed the problems or the challenges.
Yes.
And I agree with that. That's excellent.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think so many times, again, being we a lot of us go to university, we get used to the technical tomes, the heavy books, the long words, and sometimes I just want to be simple, because I think at the time I was reading another book by Tara Moore called Playing Big, and then Sheryl Sandberg Lean In was very big at the time, and all these had these different words and they're using different flowery terminology, and I'm like, I don't have time or the brain space. I'm a busy woman. Give me something I can pick up and I can find an answer. And that's why I wrote the book the way I did, and the chapters I did, in that a woman can just flick through the index and say, okay, I'm having a challenge with boundaries or how to say no. I'm feeling a little overwhelmed at the moment. I'm dealing with another issue at work. I don't know how to have this conversation with my boss. And you can pick it up and you could probably read it in a lunch hour. And you don't have to read it book to book. You could just read that section that's pertinent to you, that will help you take the next steps you need to take. And I was very deliberate on that. I didn't want people to sit down and lose lots of hours. We're very busy women, multitasking, having lots to do, invariably giving ourselves lots of things to do. So how can I make this easier? What would I want if I was in that situation?
I think you accomplished that goal.
Thank you.
I really do. How have your reviews been about the book?
You said earlier that you had found a section in the book that resonated with you, and that's been the response I've got, is that many women will go to me, oh, I read this chapter and I saw me. And that's all I want. Even if you only read one chapter, if it's one chapter that helps you, that's my job done. And that has been the kind of response we've had. In fact, I'm coming up to, I think it's almost my 3rd year of the book.
Oh,
I'm suddenly thinking, wow, 3 years since I wrote it.
18.
I need another one.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. That was going to be my other question. Is there going to be a follow-up to that?
I have something playing in the back of my mind. A couple of things I want to do with this book. I was trying to see if I can put it on audio, because I've had requests for an audio version.
That's awesome.
I'm a big podcast listener, and I walk a lot, and I listen to a lot of things when I'm walking. It's probably my best time to absorb information, and I've had requests for an audio. So I'm investigating that, and then I'm looking at what the next book could be. And I've got a couple of ideas that are slightly different, but still female centric, because that's my bag. That's what
and it's needed. It's needed. I think a lot of offices and other organizations could use your expertise. I hope that we at the library could invite you in when it's possible.
Fabulous.
To share some of your wealth of knowledge with us.
Thank you.
That we can gain from your coachings.
I would love to do that. I'd love to do that.
Because I don't think I've ever encountered a book that is as practical as yours. You can identify what is taking place. It resonates with some of the things you experience.
Yeah.
And as you pointed out, when you mentioned that, as women, we're not really that special.
Yeah.
I know you said when you're being given certain information, don't take it personal.
Yeah.
But when I came across that first, I'm like, okay. But then I understood what you were getting at. So I'm just wondering, when you mentioned that to other women, I mean, what are their initial response when you say, you're really not that personal?
Well, I mean, I always put it in context.
Yes.
And so yes. I will say that I'll never just say it out loud and leave it hanging in the air. Yes. I put it in context, and the way I phrase it is for women to open their mind to see what they have been doing. Because as I said, we can be our own worst enemies. We see asking for help and support as a sign of weakness. And that, it's not necessarily their fault. It's been partly societal, culturally. We have the preface of the strong Black woman who takes everything on. We have, we often see people saying, I'm Superwoman, and wearing the S on their chest, when really what you need is help, because you can't sustain. I know that you can't sustain running at that level. And when you see people saying you can't drink from an empty cup, it's absolutely true. And as women, we're often the backbone of our families, of our support structure. So if we go down, the rest of us around us goes down.
Yes.
So that's why I'm very cognizant about saying, women, when you recognize you have a challenge, don't hold it to yourself.
Right.
Talk about it. And I'm very keen on talking about those topics that we're uncomfortable talking about. And that's why I did what I put in the book, because quite often we fear being judged if we say this is how we feel. And we get those looks, we get the side eye, and we get the whispers. You know, she can't look after her family. You know, she can't handle it. You know, and you get all that.
Yes.
And I want us to be able to say, well, look, I need this support. I need this help. And this is the start. This would be the start.
True. And then you also mentioned that, you know, we tend to think that when we ask for help, we look at it as a sign of weakness.
Absolutely. Yes.
You know, and that limits us.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
To me, asking for help is the biggest sign of strength.
Yes, it is.
Because that's a level of self-awareness. And again, I'll share what I share with my clients. I say to them, I say, well, if you ask for something, you ask for help, or you ask for something that you're hesitant to ask for, and the answer is no, what position are you in? What different position are you in than when you started? You know, you haven't lost anything.
Right.
You've probably gained knowledge, because at least you know that's not an avenue you can pursue. So you think, what next? What can I do next? So don't shy away from hearing the word no, and also don't hesitate to use it when you have to. That's the other thing.
I don't think we do that very well.
No, with ways.
But also, coupled with that, your book also spoke about you're pointing out, you know, we're afraid to do certain things because we're afraid of failing.
Yes.
And then what you rightly said is you make mistakes, you learn.
Yes.
That was like a breath of fresh air.
Yeah. Yes.
And we all need to know that, you know, we're not perfect.
Yeah.
We don't know everything. We're going to make mistakes. So we make mistakes, and we learn from those mistakes, and we are better. Absolutely. I find that was, it was just lovely just seeing those words.
I mean, that all smacks back to perfection again, you know, because we're seeking perfection. And I think I've just written an article on my website about perfection. The fact is, perfection doesn't exist because it's very subjective. And what you deem as perfection, somebody else deems as not perfection. And especially in the work environment, when you're looking to have this perfect report or do this perfect something, your colleague has probably gone helter-skelter, gone and done it, and has moved ahead because they're not worried about perfection. And men are very good at doing that. Men will just say, look, I don't have all the qualifications, but you hear that? That job has got my name on it.
Yes.
You know?
True. Yes. Because when we could you explain a bit? There's a part in your book when you said you think we're qualified for a position. I think you were like a study, and it was somebody said, but then they started to second guess themselves, and they were saying they don't know enough, or they feel like a fraud. Could you just speak about that a little bit?
Yeah, it's often in imposter syndrome, usually imposter syndrome, where and again, when I go back down to the qualifications again, you know, we take another qualification because we believe we don't know enough, you know, and then we tell ourselves, because we haven't got X, Y, Z, that we can't do something. So it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, when in essence, we haven't really found out sometimes where what is it I actually, what is it I actually need? What's right and what's wrong? And we have to check ourselves, because again, I tell women, sometimes these are limiting beliefs. So when you're telling yourself, or your little voice in your mind, my inner mean girl sometimes can be telling me things that, you can't do that. Who do you think you are? Why are you going for that? You haven't got that qualification. You can't do this. You have to stop, hear that voice, and then put it back in its place, put it back in its box, and ask the question, is this true? Is what I'm saying to myself true? Where's the proof to qualify what I'm telling myself? So almost fact check yourself and what you're telling yourself.
Awesome. We have a comment, or
Yeah.
somebody, we have a feedback. Individuals want to know where they can get your books from.
Okay, well, there was a copy in the library. Let me give you a plug, shameless plug.
That's awesome.
There was I know Best of Books was stocking at one time, but if you can't get it. I have a couple of copies, COVID related, not non-COVID qualification, quarantine, whatever it is, recognized, or you can
Yes.
or on Amazon.
Okay. All right. So I hope they heard you.
Yes.
Amazon Best of Book, and we have a copy here that we don't want to part with. I think we also need to purchase a few more.
We've got to share.
We do.
And they can also listen to the podcast This Woman Can, because again, there's lots of discussions with women. I discuss, have interviews with women every other week, Caribbean women, about their career journeys, what they've done, how they overcome some of the challenges. And then I'll also talk about various things that impact women, challenges that impact women, and give my viewpoint. It's on YouTube channel there, This Woman Can, and also, as I said, on most major podcast platforms, iTunes, Google Podcasts, etc.
That's great. I hope they heard all of that and took it all in. Would you like to just tell them, would they have to just type in Janice Sutherland and they'll find you on YouTube?
Yeah, if you put in This Woman Can channel on YouTube, it's called This Woman Can. You'll be able to find. I put my most recent interviews up there. I've been podcasting for almost 3 years again. So there's probably, and I've just recently started transferring those interviews onto. I've transferring these interviews onto YouTube video format, but you'll find lots of audio on, as I said, on podcasts. Everything going back is there.
Okay, I know you mentioned because of the various requests for writing a book that you eventually got around to it. You said you had to feel it, because there are times you felt that wasn't the time.
Yes.
What advice would you give to other women or other individuals who really wanted to write a book? Are there any advice you could offer as a writer?
Okay, a couple of things probably. It's probably write what you're passionate about. Don't second guess yourself. Write what you're passionate about. This wasn't my first idea, my first book idea. I had another idea, which is kind of still sitting there, but I don't have the mindset to tackle that subject. It wasn't close enough to me. And one of the things I'm hoping you pick up in the book is that when as you're talking to me, is how I write in the book. It's not everybody's style, but for me, authenticity was key, because how I connect most with women is almost speaking at the level that we both can relate to, because I say the words, and like you said, everybody says to me, I saw a chapter in the book, and that's because it's real. That's because it's a real life scenario, not something I've made up, not words that I'm trying to create or trying to put a fancy name around something that's pretty common, trying to make it flowery and try and find all highbrow. I want to tell it like it is. I mean, you didn't give the full title of the book. So the full title is this.
Yes.
Yeah. This Woman Can, and I would give the sanitized version. This Woman Can, the no BS version. Sorry, the no BS guide for women who lead. And that's why I wanted, because I wanted it to be almost shooting from the hip. If you were talking to your friend, what would she say to you? If you were talking to someone that cared about you, what would they say? And if you were talking to somebody, you saw a friend that's going through this, you could say to them, look at this, or this is what Janice said, or this is what the advice I think would work really well for you. And I wanted it for women. I want it to be relatable for women.
I totally understand that, because as you said, the subtitle of the book, I'm like, what would she have to say? And then as I went through some of the section, I'm like, really?
Yes.
I mean, the book is awesome.
Thank you.
And I ignored what I should not have ignored, that we state all the time. Never judge a book by its cover.
Yes.
Because I thought, okay, that's really enough for me, just from the title.
Yes.
You know, and then, I mean, oh my goodness, everybody needs to read it. Everybody needs to be reading it. It needs to be a book discussion.
Yeah.
I have a feeling, they need to have a book discussion about that, because I show that would be so awesome.
Thank you.
I'm not sure if it's in the book, but I remembered looking at something that I laugh at. You spoke about gray hairs. Was that on the podcast? Was that one of the podcasts?
It was on the podcast, but it wasn't on my page.
You had me cracking up.
My Facebook page, yeah. So again, I'm trying, as I said, I want to break down those barriers,
Yes.
those things that women tell themselves. Now, I think the comment was the fact a friend of mine who had been working overseas had come back and saw my grey hair and said, I call it my halo. So it's around their front and I call it my halo. And she'd commented that I was, are you embracing the grey hair? And I said, well, I'd stopped colouring it for about a year or so ago, because one, I wanted to know the true state of play with my hair. And secondly, I'm very active, and the constant colouring was really getting to be painful, so I just didn't want to do it. And then I realized, I'm like, well, who am I actually trying to appease or fool here? Because I'm a woman of a certain age, and it's not believable to think that a woman my age, with my level of experience, has this full head of jet black hair that's never seen a grey ever. Come on, let's be real about this, right? So and then I've also got grey envy, because my mom's hair now is all silver grey, and I think it looks absolutely fabulous. So I have this envy. I'm like, I have goals, grey hair goals that I can that I can embrace, because I sometimes say I want to grow old disgracefully, because I'm not going to just because I'm this age. That means I need to put back in a box somewhere and wait for whatever happens in the future. I've still got life to live. Women are living far longer than they ever did, and I've got a few years going yet, and there's still things I want to do. So yes, so I want to tackle those conversations. And then this week, for instance, I'll be doing in the This Woman Can community, I'll be talking about money and our relationships with money and the impact it has on us, and maybe culturally, and why we're not thinking. I've got a guest speaker, Davinia Tomlinson, who she's Caucasian heritage. Again, I'm very deliberate about the faces I produce, because I want to see people like us that we can relate to, because sometimes we may listen to a person of another hue and think that doesn't relate to me. That's not to do with me, but if you see somebody who looks like you, who's talking things that you recognize, that's a whole different, you sit up and listen. So I'll be talking about money and finances, and how we can not so much future-proof ourselves, but how we can navigate the pandemic, and also the link between mental health, stress, and finances. because again, we're going to be worrying. And then some people may say, well, what does that have to do with women in leadership? It has a lot. Because if we're worried about finance or whatever things and we're stressed out, we can't do our job. If we can't do our job and can't perform, we don't get recognized. So it's all interlinked.
I actually wrote down what you said. The color of my hair doesn't impede my ability to deliver my services. I think I need to stick it up and keep it visible. I'm at that point. And you, like you said, I mean, you're busy, and the thought of having to constantly go back and color. You want to go to the beach, come back home, wash it out, and just get going again. You don't want to go through all of that.
No. I cycle. I walk a lot. I used to run, some former marathon runner, but now I have to walk because of injuries, age. Can't escape that. But having that additional, I had to think, who was I really doing it for?
Right.
I was doing it to appease people's perception of me. Quite often that's what we do because we don't want to be judged a certain way. But I am who I am. You need to accept me for who I am, not what you want me to be. And I live by that.
I think we need to embrace that.
Yes.
I'm actually looking forward to listening to that podcast also, because, we need to be more responsible when it comes to our finances.
Yes.
And we need to take care of ourselves mentally.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Because, if we break down, as you're pointing out, everything goes haywire.
Yes, yeah. I did a great, if people want to go on to my Facebook page, I am Janice Sutherland. Last week, I did a whole thing about women and mental health. And I had Tamira Luby, who's a therapy worker in Antigua, therapy counselor, mental health expert. I had her sharing tips, and I spoke to women about how they navigate it, and also for organizations out there, how organizations can support people, can support women in the workplace. So many things we need to tackle that probably not beneficial for this platform, but so many things that are female related that we need to recognize, that need to be discussed, and need to have a voice.
From an author's standpoint, how were you impacted during the COVID or via the COVID?
From an author's standpoint, I think at first I was a little discombobulated, like most people were. And I think partly because my husband was traveling at the time and just managed to get back on the last day before we closed everything.
Oh, wow.
So, there was a little bit of nervousness around that. But then, to be honest, I actually embraced. I'm fortunate enough to be able to work from home. I'm in my office in the bottom of the garden. So I'm fortunate to already set myself up. So the work from home wasn't new to me. It's also opened up other organizations' eyes to the fact what can be delivered virtually, because I do a lot of classes and workshops virtually. So that's also opened organizations, because everybody wants to have somebody in person, and then there's been the piece where I've been sharing with person leaders, to have this level of trust, because also what was happening with the transition for leaders thinking, if that person is in front of me sitting there working, how do I know they're working?
Yes.
Which is a trust issue. That's not the worker. That's you, the leader. So, so there was some readjustment. I found myself writing more, but more short-based articles. So I've done a lot more articles. I did things like Leaders Coming Black too, because all the Black Lives Matter narrative, and I know it doesn't impact us so much in Antigua, but having grown up as a Black woman in a Caucasian world and having to navigate that, I felt it, and then all the narrative was very much about white leaders having these conversations with their Black team members, when actually you're negating the fact that leaders are Black. We also can be leaders. So I want to put my voice there. So I've done various articles and blogs about my perception and what's happening. Things like Kamala Harris, when she said, I'm speaking, again, from a woman's perspective. How do lots of women would love to be able to say that. You know I'm certainly capable of saying that, but that's been through years of experience and having that level of self-confidence. So I shared how women can develop that level of confidence, what you can do. So I kind of take sound bites and what's currently happening and write about that. It's been an interesting period. It's gone a lot longer than I thought people thought it would. And I think we have to look at how we can adapt. I'm not saying it's going to be, it's not going to go back to what it was. And I think we need to get our head around that.
Agreed. The process, was it an easy process getting your book published? Or was it a bit difficult navigating through the waters?
It was easy. I self-published. I self-published. So that whole, would I love a publisher? Probably would, because maybe I'd get an advance. But I self-published. So I didn't allow that to hold me not having a publisher. I had a message I wanted to get out. So the self-publishing method process was fairly easy now, especially in today's technology and stuff like that. So I was able to do that. I did get myself a proofreader and I think it was not a copywriter, but someone that could set the book. Because I have to admit, I can't do everything myself. I'm just writing about that. The fact that I can't do everything myself and recognize that. So pay for that expertise to do that, and then you upload it onto Amazon's platform, and you can order the books from them. So it made it pretty simple. I think the biggest challenge I think I have that I didn't realize in hindsight is I want this. This is not just Antigua based. It's a global. It's a global book. So I'd gone to Jamaica and I managed to secure a couple of bookstores there to store my books. But the challenge was getting them there. By the time I'd gone through customs and everything, it put me off the process. I'd have to physically walk with the books. It was cheaper for me to do that, to get them in stock. So I think that was the harder process for me. Is getting exposure in other countries, because it's not an Antiguan thing. This is not an Antiguan woman thing. It's every Black woman thing.
Yes.
So we all need to read it. So that's why Amazon has been a great platform to enable me to do that from a logistical distribution. But the whole process of writing the book, that was pretty straight. Publishing, that was pretty straightforward, and I like that it's so accessible.
Yes, it is. Okay. Just a request at this moment. Would you just read for us a little excerpt from an area of your book that you think would be helpful at the moment?
Yeah. I'd selected something, and it was chapter 2. And I think some women may be feeling this, especially in the current climate, and that is that this woman can successfully pivot in her career. So I'll start. Patricia was a lifer, not in prison, but with her job. When we first started our coaching relationship, she'd been in her role as shift supervisor for 7 years and had been with her current company for 20 years. She had an exemplary record, but felt that despite voicing her career aspirations in her annual reviews, applying and being turned down for more senior roles, she felt her employers still viewed her in a limited capacity, and she had become a victim of her own success. After all, if she was doing a great job, why move her? During her discussions, Patricia realized that if she wanted more seniority, she would have to consider working for another organization, and this thought paralyzed her into inaction. In her eyes, she was no longer the carefree 25-year-old she had been when she embarked on her career. She couldn't just pivot into a new job with the other baby boomers, and let's not forget the mass of millennials. She had responsibilities. She was scared of the unknown. She was nauseated with overwhelm. She was unsure if her current knowledge would help her with her future aspirations. I assured her that these were common and valid feelings, which meant we would have to embark on a plan that would give her the best chance of succeeding with her career change, the 10 steps of the career pivot.
Oh, wow. We need to sit and have you read the entire book.
chose that section because I think, again, given the current climate where
Yes.
people are facing job losses or having to consider moving careers and stuff like that. And if we I talk about people being lifers. We've been in jobs for a considerable amount of time, and we don't know what to do next, how to transfer our skills, how to make that move. And that's why I chose that chapter.
Thank you. You knew best. We'd so like to thank you for just taking the time and, just talking and reading an excerpt from your book. I hope we could do this again.
Absolutely.
And I hope when things settle down that we could actually have you here in person.
That'd be great.
And we can invite the community out to have a discussion, because it is relatable. And I think, a lot of women need to be able to read that book and know that, they can be helped.
Yes.
Help us to navigate this world a little bit better.
And they can do it.
Yes. Yes. This woman can.
This woman can. Absolutely. It's my strap line. If I can, you can. This woman can.
Yes. Yes. So once again, we'd like to thank you for being here with us. And we look forward to, just speaking with you again. Thank you for really, without any hesitation, agreeing to do this.
It's a pleasure.
All right. So we wish you much success in all of your endeavors. We'll continue to follow you on YouTube and your podcasts. And you said the book can be obtained in Amazon. Yes, there's one at the library. And you said Best of Books.
They still have stuff.
Yes. And, for those e-readers, Kindle, there's a Kindle version right there. Okay, so it's covered everywhere, all the various formats. Okay, so once again, we'd like to thank you, and we wish you much success in all of your future endeavors. And just thank you for, just feeling that desire, having the passion to share with women from all of your experiences.
Thank you.
All right, so you take care, and God bless.
Take care.
All right, bye.